Hello, welcome back for another pen talk. Thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to stay on the same continent that we've been on for a while, Asia, but we're going to go a little bit south and we're going to look at a pen that I got today from India. I had to show how it was sent to me. It appears to be wrapped in something like t-shirt material. This was part of a Ranga group buy. I get emails from them maybe a couple times a year. I've always been interested in it. I saw a couple reviews on the Ranga pens that got me interested, and I wanted to buy one directly from them. They are sold on eBay and other places, but I wanted to see how it would come from them. So we're going to open this up and take a look at the pen and let you know what I think about it. And I think that sealing wax there is an interesting little touch, along with some other tidbits. Interesting that this package made it through international shipping in such pretty good shape. Yeah, when I woke up this morning, I didn't know what I was going to do, but when I got this pen in the mail, I knew what I was going to do today. So this is actually, looks like it's hand sewn. I tried to damage it as little as possible, removing it. But then inside the actual pen container is wrapped in this phenomenal, interesting newspaper with some little personals on it. And I find this one to be as interesting as any of them. So let's take a look at the pens. So after carefully removing the newspaper, we find this very nice box, kind of a dark pink there, snap closure, and inside we find what we typically get, the pen that I ordered, a free pen included. It's just an inexpensive pen, but still a nice deal. Syringe for an eyedropper and an extra nib and an ebonite feed. So the pen is securely wrapped in this little plastic enclosure. I mean, certainly different than any packaging I've gotten from China. And there's no question about this being a family-run company that prides itself in its work and certainly spares no expense in securely packaging everything. So we're going to do the pen unveiling. So right away you'll see it's the matte finish, it's green ripple, flat tops, top and bottom. Has a nice feel to it. You know, I enjoy my Carolina pens matte green acrylic, so I thought this would go nicely with that. I mean, there's a lot of colors, as we can see here, and a slight sampling of all the ebonite colors. It's an unscrew cap. A little bit over 2 turns to unscrew, and I got it with a Bach nib. And yes, there's a goat on the nib. And I'm pretty certain I got it in broad because that's what I usually get. Really nice section is my first impression. Extremely light pen, as you would expect something made from ebonite. It posts nicely, which is one of the things that I wanted in the pen. Some pens I don't care if they post or not, but this one I wanted it posted. I enjoy the minimalistic look of this pen. It's certainly nice and should have like a Bach converter in there. A lot of turns to take off the barrel, but that's fine. Yep. And we see some water in there, so this thing was probably tested. So I think I'm ready to ink it up and see how this Bach nib writes and how this pen feels in the hand. Before I inked it up, I obviously decided to flush the nib assembly. I removed it from the section. It's interesting, at the bottom of those threads it looks like there's some glue or used there, which is nice. Lots of threads, as we talked about. A branded Schmidt converter. So we're ready to ink it up. So this section is just straight through with threads on it for the nib assembly, nib collar, whatever you want to call it. But what's interesting is the way this Schmidt converter fits, and it goes all the way in. So one may talk about international standards, one may talk about these as being a national standard, but unless that converter and or cartridge has that nice shape at the end, it's not going to work well with this Bach nib. The cap is two pieces. There's a top finial that keeps the clip in place, so that's a classic design. Edison uses that quite a bit. It's always good to take a look at how the cap is machined, and there's a couple different ledges in there that correspond to the ridges in the section, and that's a very small area there at the very top where the nib's going to reside, so I expect this pen will stay wet for a long period of time. You may ask, Chris, why did you decide on a matte finish green ripple ebonite pen when you bought your Ranga pen? And here's the reason. This is a Edison ebonite pen, the pearl, in a gloss finish. I mean, this is the more classical ripple design. But none of these other pens I'm comparing it to I would ever consider small, but as you can see in relationship to the Model 3, they're all smaller. Here's my Charleston, and this is an acrylic that Jonathan poured, so, you know, that's not an ebonite one. And I just have the M800 here as a comparison, and in this field, the M800 looks normal. In fact, it's a little bit small. So let's take a look at the business end. Posted, the Ranga Model 3 continues to dominate this selection of pens. But again, these posts, they all post relatively high, so they make for a very long pen posted. We are with the business end, the important end of the pen. And here again, you'll see a lot of artistic difference, functional difference. You know, the Pearl is a minimalistic pen where the cap and barrel meet, so you're going to get a big step up there and generally a smaller section. The Ranga is more classical. You can see there's no step down here in the threads, and that's a very nice long section. When I first started writing with it, this big lip at the end I felt, but then I easily got used to it. And the Carolina Charleston, I think, has an excellent, well-designed section. It's on the large side, but relatively easy to hold. And the M800 is the M800. The other thing that I think this shows up is the nib is, I think, a number 8 on the Ranga. From my measurements and everything else I can gather, it's certainly bigger than a 6. So I put it into an 8 category. And the way that it writes, I also... it's different than the number 5s and number 6 Bach nibs that I have in broad, which is this one is. And this is the ink that I decided to use, ink I haven't used yet. You may ask, what is it? Now it's a Pen BBS ink 159 called Nice Green, and it looks nice. Chromatography reveals that it's a yellow and blue combination that is used to make the green. I expect it to be nice and shading, especially in this broad nib, which I expect to be quite wet. Yes, the Ranga is not a small pen. The threads, when you unscrew the cap, are a little bit stiff in the beginning, and they don't really feel as clean as other pens might. 2 turns to get the cap off. This pen fits very well in the hand without posting it, so this pen I would probably prefer not to post. And that lip at the end occasionally bothers me because you really can't slide down comfortably. It really keeps you up on the section. And with that large nib, you're automatically a pretty distance from the paper. I would like a little bit less of a lip. You like a little lip there to know when you're at the end of the section, but this one is intrusive, and from a design viewpoint, I don't think it's as conducive to writing as it would be if it was less of a lip. I mean, this is as smooth as nibs get. You know, which a lot of broad nibs are smooth because there's a lot of tipping material on the end. And as long as it has a decent polish on it, it's going to write well. When I first wrote with this nib, it didn't quite write the way I liked it, but I didn't do anything to tune it. I just got some other Bach nibs and wrote with them and decided that you get a certain amount of feedback from Bach nibs, and this actually has a little bit less than you usually get. I like the way this works with this ink. You get some nice shading. It's pretty wet. So overall, it's time for the rating. And this is not an easy one to rate. I'm going to give it an 8.9. The nib, I think, is better than the pen. I still feel that a little bit uncomfortable with that large lip at the end of the section. The pen is pretty well made, but there are some flaws that you'll see occasionally. There's one there in the cap. You know, just a little chip out of it. But you know, it's a $50 pen with a $25 nib. And now I have a Bach number 8 nib. So hopefully you've enjoyed this look at this pen, and is this a pen I would recommend for you? And I'd have to say no. You may love the pen, you may try it in different materials, but there's a pretty strong odor in the box, a pretty strong odor from the pen. These are probably made and shipped out. You know, they're made to order and shipped out. Am I glad I bought the pen? Yes. I think it'll blend in well with my collection. But as a standalone pen, if this was the only pen that I owned, I probably would not be as happy as I could be. So just keep that in mind. And there's a lot of these special offers come about. And you can get this pen for probably closer to $30 if you get an Indian nib on it without going for the Bach nib. So, you know, keep that in mind. So we've reached the end of this video, so thank you for watching. May you have many great writing experiences, explore this phenomenal international global world of pens that we have an opportunity to dive into. So we've reached the end, but not the end. It's just the end of this video. Bye for now. I do like that ink, and that nib is smooth.